This Remembrance Day morning, I would like to highlight two late members of our congregation, Katie Simons and Cecil Drew, who lived through the Second World War and were active members of this church in the 1980s and 90s when I knew them. Katie Simons was a girl in Holland when the war broke out, and she and her family risked their lives hiding families of Jews in their home so that the Nazis would not find them. Had they been discovered by the Nazis, it would have meant certain death for Katie and her family and for the refugees as well. In Winnipeg, years later, Katie became very active in our church and in the peace movement. Even though she was not a fast walker, she would walk Winnipeg's Peace March every year. I remember one spring Sunday at the church greeting Katie, soaked to the skin, but smiling broadly with the success of her walk after marching through a rainstorm. Some members here might remember Katie's origami peace cranes and paper globes, which she painstakingly assembled, only to give them away with a story about peace. Cecil Drew had been a bomber pilot during the Second World War in Asia, and he later became an educator in Winnipeg. He was well known for his volunteer work as president of the Manitoba chapter of VANA, Veterans Against Nuclear Arms. Cecil would participate in every peace march and was often organizing church members here to walk with them. He was very active in Unitarian Universalist projects. At many events, I remember Cecil describing how war was a thrashing, uncontrollable beast that often followed no rules of international protocol, as is recently evidenced from reports from the Russian-Ukrainian war, the Hamas-Israeli conflict, and many others. As I was preparing this service, I was thinking about the global situations we now find ourselves in, and also about Katie and Cecil, who had lived through war. And I wondered, what might they say if they were around today, and what advice might they offer? As Unitarian Universalists, I think Katie and Cecil would have modeled sympathy with the families of the victims and the children traumatized by shootings, bombings, and collapsing buildings. I think that they would have sympathy with all the people of the world living in the midst of conflict. I believe they would have encouraged people to do what they were able to do to bring peace and comfort to people. A few decades ago, there were many who thought that peace would never come to Northern Ireland after decades, centuries of conflict. It finally did come, though, in the form of the Good Friday Agreement in the spring of 1998. May a tidal wave of peace wash over the world in our time.